Welcome, everyone. I'm Christine Biglin from St. Mary's County Library. We're very happy to have you tonight. Our guest speaker is Barb Whipkey. She is the coordinator for the St. Mary's County. She's the St. Mary's County coordinator for the Maryland Bluebird Society. And she's also the owner of the Wild Birds Unlimited stores in Lexington Park and LaPlata. And she has all sorts of great information to share with us about bluebirds. Welcome, Barb.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. So tonight, before we jump right into our PowerPoint, I know you guys are all worried about this extreme cold that we've been having and we're going to be having. Normally, the birds are just fine out there in their bluebird houses as they are taking shelter. But because we do have some extreme cold coming in, I'm going to give you a few little tips that you can do if you can safely get to your bluebird houses. I know right now there's a lot of ice in that, so I don't want anybody risk a fall getting out to your bluebird houses. But if you can get to your bluebird houses, so here I have a house right here, and a lot of the houses, so our particular houses here have cross ventilation. So here at the tops of them, it is set so in the summertime, heat rises, so it lets out that heat. Right now, we want all that heat to stay in there. So if you can take and fill those little cracks, what I have here is a nesting ball. And you can just pull out little pieces of that cotton material and stuff it in those cracks. You can use some kind of cloth rag, anything you have. Just make sure it's in under the roof there so it's not going to collect moisture and drip down into the birds. But if you can fill up any of those little crevices in that to try to keep that heat in for the birds, that will be extremely helpful. You can also take some type of wood chips. This is just wood chips that we have here in the store. If you do any type of woodworking or anything, as long as you have wood chips that have not been treated with anything, you can use those wood chips. Drop about an inch, inch and a half in the bottom of the box, because what they will use those boxes for, you will have multiple birds pop into those and use those for roosting. So when you see those birds out there checking out the houses now, they are not already thinking about nesting. They are thinking about survival right now. So filling those cracks with some type of nesting material, cloth, something like that, that's going to help keep that warmth in. And then adding just a little cushion layer of the wood chips is going to just help keep that floor a little bit warmer for them as well. So that's just a few tips. And then, of course, right now you want to be offering all your birds any types of suet, high-fat material, any type of suet, high-fat foods. That way they can eat less and get basically a bigger bang for their bucks, because they need, right now, the birds, they're no longer caching foods away. Before we talked about they were caching, storing those foods away. They're no longer caching. Right now, it's just survival. Every little nugget of food they eat is what is helping them to survive to the next day. So high-fat foods, suets, things like that, peanuts, anything with nuts in it, that's what's going to help them make it to the next day. If you have any questions on that, you can always pop into the store, call us, email us, and we can help you work through any of those situations. Okay, and now I'm going to jump into the PowerPoint and we will talk more about bluebirds and becoming a bluebird landlord specifically. Okay, so right here we have our male bluebird starting to look really pretty out there. You'll notice right now those male bluebirds are bright blue. The female's just a little bit more subdued. So a little bit of the basics on bluebirds. Eastern bluebird is here on our left. The western is here in the center. and the mountain here on the right. We're only going to be talking about the eastern bluebird because that is the only bluebird that we have here in southern Maryland. Bluebirds are secondary cavity nesters. What a secondary cavity nester is a bird that is not able to excavate their own nest. So that means they can't find a decaying tree and clean out that tree and make their own nest. So they are reliant on abandoned woodpecker holes or those wonderful birdhouses that you're putting up for them. So years ago, when bluebirds were becoming more endangered, it was thanks to humans getting involved and starting to put up houses that helped to bring the population back. So we're talking about all the damage humans have done. For once, we get to say that we've done great things by bringing the bluebird population back. So bluebirds eat mainly insects, but they also eat fruit, nuts, and some seeds. A lot of times we hear people say, oh, the bluebirds, they're in my yard all the time. They nest there. They come to my bird bath, but they never eat at my feeders. The reason that typically is because people are only putting out food in the shells. They're not able to crack most shells, so you need to offer food that is already shelled or foods that are full of fruits, nuts, things that already have the shell removed. If anybody watched on our Facebook page a while back, you would have seen our wonderful Bluebird Bugberry blend, which I can attest to should better be left for the birds and not the humans. I did eat about a fourth of a cup of it. Leave it, let the birds eat it. I'm sure the bluebirds love it, but me not so much. If you want to find that video, go back. It's probably been about 3 weeks that I ate it. The team challenged me. I gave them a sales goal. They met their goal. And so I held up my end of the deal and did eat it. It's all the stuff that bluebirds love, and it's even in bluebird bite-sized pieces. I don't recommend it for human consumption. But as one of the customers happened to be in the store that day, she said, that's pretty good that you believe in your product enough that you'll eat it. So I did. I ate it. Don't do it. Don't go there. The first bite tasted like peanut butter and jelly. I have a lot of customers ask me what it tasted like. The first bite was peanut butter and jelly, just a burst, and it went downhill from there. So foods like this or any seeds that's shelled, lots of fruits, nuts, berries, but the shell need to be removed if you want to get those bluebirds to your feeders. And then bluebirds prefer to nest in open grassy areas, but I'm here to tell you today they don't require that. And if you want to get them into your yard, winter is the time to do it. Because if you are the only yard in your neighborhood that is offering access to fresh water right now, and you have food and you have a bluebird box for them to take shelter in, guess where they're going to start hanging out? Then bluebirds are our first nesters of the season. So they're hanging out with you, they're eating your food, they're using your bath to drink and bathe in. Your box is there for them to roost. Come late February, it's time to start looking for a house and they realize, wait, everything I need is right here. So you get your first pair of nesting bluebirds. My yard is very heavily treed. It is not open. It's not grassy. Well, it is grassy, but it's not an open grassy field-like yard. And gosh, it's probably been about 15, 16 years. We have had at least one nesting pair every year. And the way I attracted them in was the first year I set up my heated bird bath. So winter is the time to bring those into your yard. Telling the difference. This time of year, it's now getting pretty easy to tell the difference because those males are very obvious, much brighter blue. But you can also, on the female, if you notice her here, that bright white eye ring she has. When you're looking at them tomorrow in your yard, just take a look and you'll notice that she's got this white eye ring around her eye. So during the year where the male's not quite so bright blue, you'll notice that she does have a white eye ring on her. So that's your difference, but trying to tell bluebirds they're going to have that blue back. The female's back is a little bit more gray, more subdued blue, but then they have that orange breast that then stops about mid-tummy. And then why do bluebirds need our help? Well, as I already mentioned, they're secondary cavity nesters. So they can't find that abandoned, or they need to find that abandoned woodpecker hole. But what we tend to do when a tree falls down partway is we tend to clear cut it. So if you have those trees that came down during a storm and they're not in a dangerous location, if you can leave those trees there, they're not going to come down on your house, a shed, a car, something like that. If you can leave those there, that's going to become homes for woodpeckers, insects, a lot of other animals. And then with time, it becomes bluebird houses, woodpecker houses, other homes. So things like that is going to help provide habitat, not only for the bluebirds, but a lot of other animals as well. So that loss of habitat, construction of new homes, if you look right out here in front of the store, years ago, this whole plaza was just flattened, become a concrete slab. So we tend, like I said, tend to just cut down trees instead of trying to save them. And then competition from non-native species, which we will get into more later. Two big ones is our house sparrow and our starlings. I'm sure you're all seeing lots of lovely starlings at your feeders right now. We can help you with that too. Pop into the store. I know people are coming in and saying, I know there's over 100 blackbirds and I'm not exaggerating. And we know you're not exaggerating because we have them too, but we can help you with solutions on those too. And there is one of those little guys, that wonderful starling. A big key with those non-native species is you do not want to let them nest in your birdhouses. The great thing with the bluebird house, if it is sized appropriately, and we talk about the size of a bluebird hole, it should be 1.5 inches. So just the size of this ring. If it's a 1.5 inch hole, the starling cannot get in there. So you're golden. If you're not sure if you have an appropriate sized one, you can obviously measure it. The other thing you can do is grab a bluebird house portal protector like this and just screw this into the front of your current house, and boom, you've solved your problem there. You can also pop on the front of it something like this. You can see that's a little bump out. Then you add this to the front of it. And now you keep those squirrels from chewing in it, the starlings getting in, and you've just really helped protect the current house you have. This also works if that hole is way too big. Maybe a woodpecker or squirrel increased the size for you once upon a time. So these two little items will help secure the house that you have now. So it can be an easy fix to get rid of this one. I wish it were so easy with the house sparrow, but the starling we can easily fix for you. Studies have shown that these non-native species who are allowed to raise their young in houses or in cavities, those young will then raise their young in cavities. So it's really important that we try to stop that cycle. So instead of like, oh, I'll let them go ahead. If they raise 4 or 5 babies, those 4 or 5 are then going to be looking for cavities to raise theirs in. So let them raise them out in a parking lot somewhere in a street sign. The the overhead signs or something. Don't let them nest in those bluebird boxes. And passive or aggressive measures can be used to take care of those. The big enemy is the house sparrows. Like I said, they are much tougher to deal with because they are smaller than the bluebird or a similar size. So we can't just downsize that hole to get rid of them. So the one here on the left is the male. Get my mouse here. So you're going to look for this dark, but don't mix it up with our sweet little chickadee because chickadees will also use a bluebird box. So if you have these nesting in your box and you're positive it's them nesting and not a chickadee, then you want to open that box, remove that nest. If it's a chickadee is going to build a nest with moss in the bottom. It'll be a very tidy nest and it will be moss. It is illegal to destroy that nest, and you don't want to destroy their nest because they're cool little birds and they are natives. So if that is a neat, tidy little moss nest, you're going to let that happen. But you now need to protect the chickadee from the bluebird because as much as we love our sweet little bluebirds, their species and its survival out there, if the bluebird decides he wants to nest in that box, he will do what he has to do to try to get that nest box. So in that case, you're going to get a chickadee portal and put on there because now we have to keep the bluebird out or he'll go in, kill the chickadee, or destroy the chickadee's eggs. So you would put this smaller portal on in that case to protect the chickadee from being hurt or killed by the bluebird. The great thing is the chickadee only nests once a year, where the bluebird nests 3 times a year. So if you can just protect that chickadee nest for one nesting, these screw in. So then you would just unscrew it, put it in its little Ziploc bag, hang it somewhere where you can find it next year because it may happen again next year. You've protected your chickadee. It will nest once, be done for the season, and the bluebird can have the nest box the rest of the season. I usually recommend to people in that case, set up another bluebird box because obviously you have a shortage of natural spaces for the birds to nest in your yard. You can also try the following year to maybe consider adding a chickadee exclusive box in your area, which has a smaller hole that would allow the chickadees. But it is important that we protect all of our native species. We'll come back a little more detail on the house sparrow in a bit. So what do we need to bring in those beautiful bluebirds? So food, shelter, and water. I mentioned that if you have those 3 things going on, you get those birds in, those bluebirds, come end of February when they start looking for places to nest, there's a good chance they're just going to stay with you and continue nesting all 3 times with you through the summer. And then you begin to build your bluebird population. So if you feed them, they will come. This little dish here on the, I keep forgetting to use my mouse, this little dish here, like you can see me pointing or something here, you know. This little one, I use this dish wherever they are nesting. I move it like 20 feet out from where they are nesting, and then I feed live mealworms in that one. The bluebirds will quickly learn that that's where the good stuff is. And then when I bring that out, if you can whistle, you can whistle and they will learn that mom or dad has come with the good stuff. And you only are going to do that whistle, that call, ring that bell, whatever it is, when you have come with the live mealworms. I recommend doing it around the same time of the day. You can quickly train them to come. If I could whistle, I would whistle. Instead, I yell, Mama Blue, Papa Blue. And as soon as I do, they come flying, chirping at me because they know that's when I'm coming with the live mealworms. Once you put those live mealworms in, they're gone within 5, 10 minutes. They come and grab them up. Rarely do the other birds get a chance to grab the live ones. You can continue through the winter months feeding the live mealworms, even as cold as it is out there, because they don't have a chance to freeze. Because as soon as you call to your bluebirds, they're trained to come on call and they come right down and scoop them up. So again, another high-fat food that you can be offering in the winter months. And then there's just some other food choices that I have in there to offer. And then year-round access to water. I can't say it enough. Bluebirds are a member of the thrush family, which is a water-loving bird. But right now, with everything frozen, all of the birds need access to water. So whether you're refilling your bird bath multiple times a year or a small pan of water, whatever you're able to do is extremely helpful for all the birds and wildlife right now. But again, do it safely. I don't want to hear that we've already heard so many horror stories of customers falling. So would rather not hear about any more injuries. So please be careful. This particular one is a heated bird bath. There at the top. So when I say heated, it is thermostatically controlled. So it just keeps it above freezing. So the birds aren't out there taking a sauna or anything. It's just offering them fresh water. Birds not only need to drink, but they need to keep their feathers clean. If you ever notice the birds in the wintertime look so fat and fluffy, they are fluffing up their feathers to form pockets of insulation, just like your downy coat, your down coat does, to keep you warm. Their feathers work the same way. So if those feathers are dirty or have fallen out, they don't have those pockets of insulation to keep them warm. So offering water is extremely helpful. You can also add de-icers, we call them, which work the same way. If you already have a bird bath, you can pop those into your bird bath, which will work the same way to offer fresh water year round. And then house features you're looking for. So we already mentioned bluebirds, we need a 1.5 inch size hole. So either measure your holes, or if they've already been increased in size, you can add those portals to those to make those smaller. You're looking for cross ventilation. They nest 3 times here in Southern Maryland. So that last nesting is happening in August. Sometimes you're going to see that little mama just sitting there at the hole with her head stuck out, mouth wide open because it's so hot in there. So preferably if you can use houses that have cross ventilation, so when that heat rises, it's able to escape. Drain holes. So on ours here, it's just the 4 corners are cut out here so that if water were to get in there, it's going to allow it to come out. And then you want to make sure there's a way to clean it out. When those bluebirds nest, every time they fledge, you're going to go in and clean out that nest box. You're going to be watching, and we'll go into that in a minute, and you will know pretty much the day they've nested because you're going to be watching. Those are your babies, and you'll know when they're going to hatch. You'll know when they're going to fledge. As soon as they have fledged the box, those babies are not coming back to the nest. You're going to quickly clean that nest out because mom's going to be on the job getting ready to build that next nest. So you need a way to easily clean that out. And then you also preferably want one that has a fledgling ladder. I know you can't see this one, but there's just little cross hatches in here. So it makes it easier for the babies to climb out when they're ready to come out. Because mom's going to build her nest just about halfway here because she wants to keep those babies down below that hole so that nothing's able to easily reach in there and grab her young ones. So there's just little cuts on the front inside here that just helps to give the baby something to grip. Sometimes it will be a piece of metal, like little rabbit wire or something tacked inside. It's just something for the babies to easily grip as they're ready to fledge and leave the nest. So those are the most important things to look for. This one's made out of recycled material, but you can also do wood would be fine. Okay, and then you want to put your nest box looking out into an open grassy area. When the parents are looking for a nesting spot, they are looking for a grassy area where they know that they are going to be able to find plenty of young ones, plenty of insects on the ground to feed their young ones. So they find a nest box and then they're looking, oh, is there going to be enough insects there to feed my babies? Even though they know you have fed them through this cold spell, you got them through, there's always food, they will not trust you to continue to provide food for their babies. They totally depend on nature for that. So you want to put that where the front is facing an open grassy area so that they can see that they'll be able to fly out, grab any little insects down in the grass to feed their babies. If you're going to put up multiple houses, you want to have them about 100 to 150 yards apart. And that's because they want to claim that grassy spot for their own. They don't want competition of another bluebird. So if you don't have that much space, what you can do is put maybe one in the backyard, one in the side yard, one in the front yard. And just like, okay, this is your grassy spot. This is your grassy spot. This is yours. As long as they're out of sight of each other so that they each feel like that's their lawn, they will then usually allow another one to nest because they're obviously not even noticing that there's somebody getting busy in that nest out there. And then you never, ever, ever mount it on a tree or fence. We have a bird clock here that sounds on the hour. I don't know if you hear the noise in the background, but never on a tree or fence. The biggest predators of nest boxes are snakes and raccoons. And so you're going to be watching these babies and you're going to know when it's about time for them to fledge. And shortly before they fledge, a raccoon or a snake is going to have realized what's going on there. And you're going to end up heartbroken. So you always want to mount them on a metal pole or post with a what we call a stove type baffle, which is a long baffle. I can get this all shown in here. So it is a longer style. If you've seen the squirrel baffles, which are probably like 18 inches, this one here is 3 feet. So it's a long baffle. And what that's going to do is prevent the raccoons from getting up it. If I don't even think you can see all of it here, but it is 3 feet. It's also, the snakes are going to take the direct route up it. Several customers have shared pictures of their snakes going up, crawling straight up into the baffle because they know there's eggs or babies up there. They'll crawl straight up into the baffle and then they end up coming down and leaving, which is scary watching it all happen. And I'll watch their video and I know they didn't get the babies because they've told me this, that it worked. But still, the whole time I'm watching this video of the snake going up the pole, so anxious, but it does the job. So you'll put something, a pole like this with the baffle, and then your house would go on the top of that. And then again, you're going to face that toward the open area. Another reason you want it in the open area When mom and dad are feeding the baby, bluebirds are extremely clean nesters. If you've ever been fortunate or unfortunate enough to have a house finch nesting on a wreath on your door, you know what messy nesters they are. Bluebirds are not like that. Every time they go in to feed their baby, the little poop is in a membrane sac. When those babies eat, they poop, and mom and dad will pick up that little poop sack and take it out of the nest with them. We call that diaper duty. So you're going to see mom and dad, when they come out with that little poop sack, pop their head out, look around to make sure there's no hawks, cats, things like that. So you want that nest facing an open area so they're able to get a good view, know it's safe, and they're not flying into the path of a hawk or something like that. So that's another reason it should be facing in an open area. And I will mention here, feel free to snap pictures of your yard, email them to me. You can go on our website, find the email address, or Christine can share it with you. And bring pictures in, email it, whatever, and I'll be happy to look at your yard and help you find a good location for your houses. We have people that will come in and bring pull up their security cameras and show me, and I help find locations. So you definitely feel free to do that. But definitely open locations. And then don't stress when you see the bluebirds carrying something out of the nest. We get a lot of calls, people worried about that happening, and they're just on diaper duty. So don't worry when you see that happening. And then the nesting process. So this is really cool to watch. So the male is going to find the nest. So remember right now what you're seeing though, when you see bluebirds looking at nest boxes or going in and out, they're using them for shelter. That's what we call roosting. They're using it to stay warm right now. But come late February, they're going to choose one of those pairs that's been roosting is going to decide that's home, and everybody else is going to get kicked to the curb. That male is going to pick one or two, sometimes even three houses if you have multiples that he thinks would make good nesting locations. And then he's going to bring mama to show her the houses. And this is always really cool to watch because she will go in and check it out, and he'll be sitting somewhere watching the outside to make sure she's safe while she's in there. Then he'll come on top and he'll lean over and chitter chatter at her. And then he'll jump on the front, look in the hole. She's in there for a long time. I always say, I don't know if she's deciding where the furniture would fit, where she'd hang curtains or what, but she's in there quite a while and he's chattering to her. And then if they have a second or third location, they'll visit those locations. And it happens the same every time, even though sometimes I know that it's the same pairs nesting in mine. I've got one of my females. These feathers right here on her are white. She has a pigmentation issue, and these are white. So I know at least 3 years it was the same female, but they went through the same cycle, testing out the nesting boxes to decide. I'm like, you know what they're like, and you're ultimately going to pick that one because you always do. But the same thing happened 3 years in a row while she chose. So it's fun to watch. Then she ultimately picks which one she wants. Sometimes she will leave you a rent deposit. It'll typically be a little piece of pine straw or a little piece of grass. If she leaves that rent deposit, you know that she's planning to nest with you. It may be a week, 2 weeks before she ever nests, but she's just letting everybody else know that that's her location, it's taken. So they'll be off doing whatever, and you may see them pop in every once in a while, but they're just not ready to nest yet. But they've just chosen the house and they don't want anybody else to take it in the meantime. Then all of a sudden, one morning, she decides it's time. and she gets busy building that nest. The male serves strictly as her cheerleader, and he'll just sit up here and watch and cheer her on. Occasionally, he'll pop in and take a piece out. I don't know why he does that. Just, is there a bug on that, a mite on that, whatever it is, he decides that one's not a good pick, whether he's just being obnoxious or what, but he will occasionally move pieces out of the nest box. But she does all the building. Sometimes it's a few days, sometimes it's a few weeks, but they build the nest. Then they often will disappear for 2 to 3 days. They built this beautiful nest, loose grass, pine straw, and then you'll know it's almost built when there's really fine, fine grass in the lining of it. That's when you know that it's pretty much done. But then they often disappear. And this is where people get concerned that something happened to their pair. They're just off on their honeymoon now. They'll be back in a couple days and she will lay this first egg. Let me see. I may just be going on without my PowerPoint. Let's see what I got here. Okay, no, I didn't. Okay, so then all of a sudden she comes back one day and she pops in and lays her egg. So once she lays that first egg, then she's going to lay one egg a day until she has a full clutch. Typically, that full clutch is going to be 4 to 6 days. Once she has laid that first egg, it is very unusual that she would abandon that nest. So once that first egg is laid, or you're pretty sure that first egg is laid, it's okay to peek at that to have an idea what's going on in your nest box. I know this is like, really? Should we be bothering them? With bluebirds, we are trying to help them. So it really is okay with bluebirds to take a look. And later on, I'll show you a sample of a worksheet and we'll give you a couple websites to go to where you can download some worksheets that you're going to use to track your bluebirds. And then at the end of the year, you can either send them to the Maryland Bluebird Society if you're in Maryland. If you're in another state, I'm sure if you'll look into your state, I'm sure they're tracking them too. What we're trying to do is get a handle on bluebirds. So if we were to start seeing a decline or something going on, we can figure it out before the numbers start declining. So you're going to start watching. It'll make more sense when we get to that sheet. Once they have laid, so let's say your bluebirds lay 5 eggs on Tuesday, and they're typically going to lay those eggs in the morning. So I don't want you to look until afternoon sometime, because we also don't want to disturb them when she may be in their laying. Once she lays that egg in the morning, she's off doing other stuff. So as long as you don't check in the morning, you're not going to bother her. So you're going to look in the afternoon. So you look on Tuesday, there's 5 eggs. You look on Wednesday afternoon, there's still 5 eggs. So you're going to count Wednesday as day 1 of incubation. So that's why I was saying, if you look here, it says incubation begins after that final egg is laid. So Wednesday is going to count as incubation day 1. So in 12 to 14 days from that Wednesday, your babies will be hatching. Then you're going to know when they hatched, because all of a sudden, mom and dad are going to be in and out of that nest box nonstop. For those of you who have watched your bluebirds, you know the activity, how it changes from sun up to sundown. So you'll know exactly when they hatched, but I'm going to have you go out and look and see. Again, you're going to open it up, peek, and look and see, okay, 4 hatched today on Thursday, and you're going to write that date down. 4 hatched, 1 egg unhatched. And then you're going to check the next day. There's still 1 egg that didn't hatch. if after 3 days, one of those eggs do not hatch, then I need you to remove that egg. Remember, mom did not start setting until the same day. So everybody should have hatched at the same time. We gave them a 3-day extra window in case that one was a slow starter for some reason. If we don't remove that egg, mom is either going to have to crack that egg and move it out, expose the babies to any of that bacteria, or push it alongside the nest and let it lay there in decay. So we are protecting those other babies by getting that egg out of there. So you're actually, I know it sounds like really, but if you remember, we're trying to help the species. So by getting that decaying egg out of there, you are helping those 4 remaining babies. And you're going to jot that down on that worksheet that you're keeping, that one did not hatch on whatever day that was, and so you removed it. And then every 3 days or so, you're going to pop in, make sure all the babies are still doing good, and then pop right back out of there. If at some point one of the babies has passed away, you're going to also remove that baby for mom for the same reason, to protect the remaining ones. About 18 days, those babies are going to fledge. But after 10 days from the time they hatched, we're done checking. And you'll know when it's time because all of a sudden you'll open the box and everybody is quiet. So previously, every time you opened it, they've been chirping and begging you to feed them. All of a sudden, one day you open it and they're all just quiet. Your first thought is, oh my gosh, they're all dead. They are not. They now know stranger danger, which is what we ultimately want. We want them to fear us. So at that point, we no longer open that box. It is now on lockdown because now that they know to fear us, they could fledge out of fear for us. And we don't want them to fledge the box early. So it's really important at that point that we stop opening the box and we just mark down last check on such and such day, all 4 babies doing well. Then you're going to continue to see that activity going nonstop. All of a sudden, it just stops and it looks like a ghost town at the box. You know that about 18 days they're going to fledge, but you don't even need to look at the calendar because it's a ghost town out at your box. That's your sign your babies have fledged. Only once in all these years have I ever seen the bluebirds fledge. They are very secretive at getting those babies out of the nest. They will quickly, when those babies leave the nest, they're not able to fly. So they will quickly get them to a bush, tree, somewhere secretive. Rarely, rarely will you see it happen. And then here I just have some pictures of what they're going to look like. So this is hatching day, ugly as could be. There's still 1 egg there to be hatched. 3 days old, they're still not looking so sweet. But here they are about 10 days. You can see at 10 days, most of them now are fearing the person that's checking on them. There's only one little mouth open there. So that's your sign at that point to stop checking. And you can see that nest. It's just dry grass, pine straw, things like that. A very pretty little nest, nicely woven. And then at 17 days, this is like the day before fledging. They're getting their blue coloring there. Eyes are open. They're just about ready to roll. So after the fledging, as they fledge, the parents are going to get them somewhere safe, up on a perch or something. Occasionally, if you watch the birds coming to your feeders, you may be able to watch where they're taking food and figure out where the young are. At my house, I'll often see that they'll have them up in a pine tree. And let me see, go back and see if I can see. you can maybe a little here see how their chest is kind of speckled as young. They blend in really well with pine cones when they are young. So when they put them up there on the branches next to the pine cone, unless you take a camera and zoom in or binoculars, it's really hard to tell the difference between a young fledgling and a pine cone. So they do a great job at camouflaging them up there in the pine trees. Uh, the parents will continue to feed them, but the majority is the male that's responsible for that on those first two broods of the year because mom is already getting busy building that next nest. So occasionally, if you see her at the feeder and a young one comes up to her, she may offer a little bit of food, but her focus now is starting to build that nest for the next one. So the male is typically responsible for educating them in flight and hunting skills. Her focus now is on that next nest. Occasionally, you will see the young from the previous brood coming over and helping to feed the subsequent broods. You'll also occasionally, when mom is sitting on the nest box, the young have figured out she's in there and they will come and want to get on top of the nest box. And dad will have to do a little bit of tough love to chase them away from there so that they don't give away that there's a bird in there to try to protect the nest box. So a lot of times he'll have to kind of smack them away from there and chase them away because they want to be near mom. And he sends them off. That's always kind of sad to see when he has to scold them. So nest boxes, you want to monitor them at least weekly. This is where you're watching for things to make sure there's non-native species messing around there. House sparrows, if you do have house sparrows in your area, it's very important that you're monitoring. One of the things we recommend if you have house sparrows in your area, that you really be willing to control them. We also recommend not using any food with millet, Milo, things like that, because that is very attractive to house sparrows. Um, and then, like I said, recording after each monitoring session, and we'll get to that in a minute. And then make sure that before you go out the next time to check, look and see what you saw next time or last time, especially if you're monitoring multiple boxes. Give each box a number or something so you remember which box you're at. So this is a sample of a weekly survey sheet. You can download them from the different websites. You can create whatever works for you. But as you go through some of the websites, you'll get a feel for what it is we're looking for. But we're just trying to get an idea, you know, if you get ants in the bottom, here's an easy tip. Sometimes you'll get ants in the bottom of a nest. Easy button is take an old spatula, slide it under the nest, pick it up, sprinkle cinnamon in the floor of your nest box, lay that nest back down. Within 24 hours, those ants will be gone. But if those ants are left in there, you leave those in there 4 or 5 days, those babies will be eaten alive. So it's those little kind of things you're looking for. And of course, if you run into something, you're going to reach out. If you email our email address, it'll come right to me and I can help you with whatever it is. So house sparrows and starlings, they're not protected by law, so you're allowed to do whatever you need to do. But most important is do not allow those young to fledge from there. Again, the easy button for starlings is just make sure your house is the right size, and then you've solved that dilemma. House sparrow nest. I showed you how pretty that bluebird nest was. Here is what a house sparrow nest looks like. So that's an easy one to tell the difference. But I just ask, please, if you're not sure that it's a house sparrow nest, reach out with pictures, watch the nest. Please don't destroy any other nests unless you're absolutely sure it's house sparrow. We don't want bluebird houses in our area. Chickadees, titmice, and Carolina wrens also nest in our bluebird houses. And those are all three of our favorite little birds in this area. So we don't want to be destroying any of those nests. So if you're not 100% positive, don't destroy that nest without reaching out first, please, so we can help you make a positive identification on that one. And then these are some helpful websites. Christine, are you going to include these websites in the email that goes out?
Yes, I'll make sure I put them in there. And when you said your email, um, is that, do you have an email for the store or is it your
Yeah,
personal
the
one?
email for the store, WBUOF, S as in Sam, M as in Mary, C as in Charlie, at gmail.com. So you can send any questions, pictures, anything like that, if you're looking for help picking a location, send those to me. Or if you want to set up a time to meet with me in the store, to bring pictures, to show me your security cameras or whatever, we can also do that. You can reach out through email and I can schedule a time with you too. Yeah.
Could you show the little portal guard
Yeah.
again? Because somebody wasn't able to see that.
Yeah. So this is the one for the Bluebird. So it's basically a 1.5 inch opening, which is exactly what you want a Bluebird to be. No bigger, no smaller. If it's smaller, the bluebirds can't get in. If it's bigger, the bad birds can get in. That will let the starlings, it will give access to other birds that could be predators. I mean, everything from cardinals, blue jays, everything. This is nature. And as much as we love some of those beautiful birds, it's survival. I mean, I know right
Hmm.
now you're probably seeing some aggressive behavior at your feeders, almost like nesting season where the hormonal changes happen. And it's just the survival behavior right now. Our sweet little red belly woodpeckers, we've been watching them on the camera at the store up at Cornell Lab up in New York, and they've been so angry trying to hoard all the food in that tray. And it's just survival at this point.
Mm. Yep. There
So,
are a couple of questions in the chat.
okay.
Morgan says that they live very near a pond with a small marshy area. Uh, because they are frozen recently, I tried putting out a 15-inch round metal tray of water throughout the day and changing it before it freezes. Although she hasn't seen any birds use it. Not watching it nonstop, but I have seen no activity. I bring it in at night. Do I need the heater to keep the temperature consistent?
Anything you can do to offer fresh water is going to help right now. So it's probably just a matter of them finding it at this point. I would say probably rather than metal, if you could do plastic, would be more helpful, but beggars can't be choosy, right? So,
Okay. And Cheryl says that I have a catbird hanging around my bluebird feeder. Since that is happening, I'm not seeing the bluebirds come out to eat. What should I do?
so are you sure it's a catbird and not a mockingbird? Catbirds shouldn't be here this time of year, but I have been hearing that. So catbirds have a black hat on them. Mockingbirds have white stripes on the wing.
Maybe a cowbird. I've actually seen a couple of those at my feeder
Right. Yeah, we have
with the
definitely
brown
lots of
head.
cowbirds, but the
Oh.
the catbirds and mockingbirds are bully birds.
Hmm.
So yeah, those two would definitely be a little aggressive. One of the things you can do, either with the catbird or cowbird, either one, is you can put up a feeder, something like this, that has smaller holes. Basically, it's the same concept as the portals if we were talking about, that lets smaller birds in, but wouldn't let those larger birds, like either a catbird or a mockingbird, in. So something like that would work. That also, I know you're all having problems with those blackbirds right now. Same concept, that would keep them out. Um, we have several other ones like that. We have cages you can put on feeders that will let smaller birds in. Um, so again, I would recommend bringing in pictures of your feeders. If it's feeders you got from us, then we can easily cage them. If it's not from us, it might be a little harder to cage, so it might be we need to switch foods to solve those blackbird issues.
Um, I think the question is referring to those portals. Which is better, the flat protector or the extension version?
It, so it so it depends on the issue. So if you're, let me grab our house. So if you notice, our house has a bump out on it. So what that bump out does is keeps a raccoon from being able to get in, because raccoons have those thumbs and those elbows. It keeps them from being able to get in past the elbow. So if yours doesn't have any kind of bump out and you don't have any kind of baffle, you need this, the bump out. But if you still don't have that baffle on it, I would put both on there, because squirrels are going to try to chew through it. Woodpeckers can try to make the size larger. Um, so it really depends on what your situation is like as to which one you need, or if you need both. So again, if you want to send us a picture of the house, bring a picture of the house in, or your entire setup. If there's no baffle on it at all, I would put both of them on it. If your house already has the bump out on it, then you only need the metal.
Thanks. Oh, Morgan said that they have a mockingbird, which is very protective of the feeder and is chasing off the other
Yeah.
birds.
So the other thing you can do with a mockingbird is give them a feeder of their own. So take some type of small feeder that you offer them, let that become their favorite feeder. Put something, the Bluebird Bugberry Blend's a good one because it has everything they love. Put that on just a single pole by themselves. That becomes their feeder. Let them fall in love with it. And then every day you take that feeder and that pole and slowly start moving it away from your other feeders until you've moved it around the side of the house, out of sight of your other feeders. And now the mockingbird has their new home out of sight of your other feeders, and that becomes their own little feeder. And they're no longer seeing your whole big feeding station. This is their own special feeder, whichever feeder you do it with. This just happened to be the one I grabbed. But give them their own feeder. Make sure it's food they like, which their favorite foods are berries, suet. They are an insect and berry eater. So you don't want to offer them seeds. They're not going to go for seeds. So give them those suet. They can't cling, so it needs to be a feeder that they can sit on, eat forward. But just give them, buy just a cheap pole that holds one feeder, give them that own special feeder, that own special food, and just slowly, you can even do it a couple times a day, walk that pole around to a new location out of sight of the rest of them. And that's their own special dining location. And if he's taken up residency there, you'll have problem with him come nesting season because he'll do the same thing. So I would recommend trying to get him relocated now before March when it comes nesting season.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining us tonight, and we'll see you next time. Thank you, Barb. Wonderful as
Thank you.
always.